Welcome to the Coach Business Podcast. I'm your host and coach, and I'm in the middle of breaking my own microphone as I do this intro. And today we have a special treat. We're going to do the first in what I'm calling the Ask the Expert series. And we're starting with Samantha and copywriting. It's going to be good. So pay attention if you've ever thought, what is copywriting? Or I need a copywriter, or I should get good at copywriting, or anything really along those lines. So Samantha, can you introduce yourself to us in your words?
Yeah, for sure. Hello, I'm Sam. I'm the founder and lead copywriter at Nomad Copy Agency, and my background is in sales. So everything that I write comes with the intention of conversion. I do that in a lot of ways, and we're going to get into it.
Conversion. Will you tell people what you mean by that? Because I have a feeling some people don't get it.
Yeah, making money.
Yeah, let's be clear.
Yeah, but to be very clear, we are here to make you money. You might have started your business for really pure and lovely intentions, but a business is a business, and the reason for a business is to make money. So when we convert, it might not have a dollar sign behind it all the time, but it's with the intention of leading towards a dollar sign.
Yeah. Why, this is off topic already, but why is that important for you? Like, what is it about conversion and helping business owners make money? Why does it matter to you?
One, I'm good at it. I come from a corporate sales background. I was teaching sales and leading people through sales. So I'm good at it, but I think it's so freaking important, especially as women, because one, like the idea of sales and salesiness is like off-putting in general, but for women who grew up literally anywhere, at any time, we've been told at some point that we're too much, or to back off, or to not be aggressive, or to like set our goals a little bit shy of what we know we're capable of so that we don't come across as being, too ambitious or like bitchy instead of bold or whatever.
Mhm.
And so, especially for women, especially for traditionally underserved individuals, um, it's so important to put yourself out there, and it can be really uncomfy. And so it's sometimes really helpful to work with somebody like me who can do the uncomfy bit for you.
Mhm. Yeah, I like it. And embed that knowledge and that power and those values into the sales language
Mhm.
versus the holding back belief system that can seep into people's copy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, I love this. All right, so can you tell us, is all copywriting about conversion?
If you ask 100 people, they'll tell you 100 different things. In my
Okay.
opinion, yes. And the reason for that is I always think of it like a Venn diagram. There's content and there's copy. And content is what's written for computers to find you on the internet. It's like blog posts, podcast descriptions, etc., for small business owners. Copy is what is leading to a conversion, and that's written for the human brain. That is websites, sales pages, sales emails, right? Especially emails, because computers aren't reading your emails, people are.
Mm.
So, in my opinion, conversion copy is something that's redundant. But I also
Mhm.
understand that, especially as small business owners, we're wearing a zillion hats. Everybody has different definitions for everything. And I can empathize and sympathize with the people who think that sometimes copy isn't meant for conversion. But with me and my background and my understanding of what a business is, I would argue that yes, all copy is conversion copy.
I like it. It's very direct. Because even one line of copy is supposed to sell you on reading the next line, right?
Exactly.
So it's always converting you to keep putting your energy where you are or make the decision. The content is there to make you make.
And
Okay.
that's where that Venn diagram comes in too, right? Like you've got the blog post that's supposed to, there's going to be that one part that says, and if you want to learn more, get into this paid thing or download
Mhm.
the thing that gets you on my email list. Same thing
Yeah.
with, say, like a website is going to be mostly copy because it's encouraging you. Let's think about a homepage. There's going to be a section that encourages you to go look at About Me and a section that encourages you to go look at services. But some of it is there simply to either get you to read the next line or to connect with you as the reader, and that's the content bit. So there is some overlap, but in general that's like the separation of the two.
Cool. Okay. I really am excited to get to our experiment that we did and tell people all about that. So keep listening. But a couple more questions I have before then is, when is someone ready, if there's a magical place, to hire copywriting versus doing it themselves? What's your take on that?
My take on that, and I've probably turned away more clients than I've actually worked with, so
Mm-hmm.
take it with a grain of salt. But I mean, I think one, you have to be able to afford it. And for me to feel really good about working with somebody, they have to be able to afford it, which means they have to be at a certain place in their business or have a certain proof of concept that they
Yeah.
are ready to invest. Because what I see often is somebody coming out of corporate or coming out of not working for a while and saying, I have this great idea. How am I going to bring it to life? They spend thousands on copy, thousands on design, and then wonder why it's not working. And it's because they never had a proof of concept in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I don't feel good about working with those people because I don't know that I can get results. So
Right.
for me, I think the right magical time is when you're relaunching or rebranding is
Mm-hmm.
huge. Is huge
Because
because you
you have all
have
this
the data
clarity.
behind you.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I totally agree. There's so many points where that's true. It's like, don't spend your money anywhere until you know why you're spending it there. Not
hmm
just to get the job off your plate, but because you know there's some result you're going after that you can actually get.
hmm Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and then for somebody who's like, okay, I am ready, I do need to hire a copywriter, how do you know which kind of copywriter to pick or how you're going to mesh well with someone? Like, how do you do that kind of dating game?
Yeah, so my parents instilled in me that if you're going to hire a contractor, that you interview 3 of them before you pick one. And I think that that's just a really good rule of thumb to
Hmm.
know what you're getting. A lot of times it can feel like you're comparing apples to oranges, but then you start to understand somebody's vibe. Um, and so often a vibe is enough. Uh,
Yeah.
it really is.
Hmm.
But you start to understand somebody's vibe. Take a look at their portfolio. Take a look at how other people are talking about them, and also references. Most of my business comes through referrals, and I think that that's a testament to that people are out there shouting me out and that they've loved
Hmm.
working with me. And if there's somebody who you want to be like, and you ask them who their copywriter was, their copywriter is also going to understand like how to make you appear like them and how to present like that person in the market as
Hmm.
well.
Okay, cool. All right, good to know. I like that rule of 3. Okay, so we did an experiment and I asked Sam to do something with my clients and I, just a couple of us, to see like if we could bring more data, more ability to nerd out, more learning opportunity to the podcast, if we did some sort of experiment, which meant Sam had to do a little more work than any other podcast interviewee ever. And I'm really thankful for that. I think we're all going to learn from it. And I'm curious just to see what we've pulled out of my clients and I putting our data forward and you giving us some really great copy feedback, and tell us what happened. What do you want to share first?
Yeah, sure. So let me bounce that back to you and tell me about your. So there, we'll go through 3 of them. We'll go through you first, we'll go through Amy second, and we will go through Trisha third. So
Okay.
tell me about it from your perspective and like what you were kind of hoping to get out of it, because I think the 3 of you had this in common.
Hmm. I just wanted to see what the difference would be. Like, what are the kind of the tiny tweaks that are actually really powerful? I also think it's really interesting to see how other people do clarity so much better than we do it for ourselves.
hmm
And I wanted to see if it would increase conversion, of course. What
Yeah.
did the other people
Yeah.
want?
That was more or less the same. What was interesting is one person had an opt-in page before that she had been putting out into the world. So that's also the common thread between the 3 of you, is that we specifically looked at opt-in pages because really when doing an experiment, they're kind of the low-hanging fruit. They're something that we can get people into for free, and they have a system behind them that ultimately leads to what they're selling. So
Hmm.
all 3 of you were doing an opt-in page. Um, and yeah, that's exactly what people were looking for, was to increase conversion rate. So
Hmm.
um, starting with you, and it's fun because all three of you had like very different results, and I would have loved
Yeah.
for this to be super clean and to come on here and be like, and everybody got 20% more opt-ins, and that's why you should hire me as a copywriter. But that's not what happened, and so this is fun to like look at because it's a testament to all the things that go into a successful page. Is not just are the words good and is it pretty?
Right. Yeah. It's so much more than that. Like, I know for mine in particular, I had been doing an Instagram, like I was trying to learn how to use Reels to drive traffic to get more people on my list. And I had done a 30-day challenge in about the month before we did this. So I'd been driving a lot more people there and getting opt-ins. And then when we did then we tweaked the language, and then I stopped doing that. So I immediately set myself up to create a result that looks like failure, even if it's success.
Right. Yeah. Because you started at about a 25% conversion rate, which is good for listeners to know that if you have an opt-in page that has over a 15, if your audience is hyper specific, 20% or higher, and yours is at 25%. So like, of course, we always want to find where we can optimize and grow that, but 15 to 20% is industry standard, considered a good rate. Like an opt-in
That's good to
rate.
know, because it's hard to know on those things. Like I don't track all those industry standard details. So everybody mark that in your minds.
Yeah. And you started at 25%. And then the following month, the month that we were doing the experiment, made the change, tracked it again, and you went down to about a third of the views and only about a 11.5% conversion rate. So that conversion rate dipped about 25%. But in that time, like you said, you had been driving a bunch of traffic to it from Instagram Reels. But what were you doing in the month that after we changed the copy to drive traffic to it?
I just did a few random things and then just left it, right? Because I know, this is what I tell my clients all the time, like no one sells your opt-in except you. You have to be the person who's consistently marketing it. And I really wasn't doing it. I took my eye off the prize. I was doing other things.
Yeah. And that's like a real reality in business. It's like you were doing life things and focusing on other business things. Like, so less pushing people towards it. But something else that you had shared with me is that when you first started promoting it in that month previous, before we changed the copy, is that you hadn't promoted anything like it recently. So there was also some low-hanging fruit where the numbers that first month were probably going to be higher anyway than after we changed the copy. So
definitely.
So that's case study number one, is that maybe we broke your opt-in. No, I don't think that's true.
I don't think we broke it. What's been interesting is I'm consistently getting opt-ins on that freebie, not every day of the week, but a lot of days of the week, and I'm not pointing to it. So something's still working. And I want to test more things in the future, but it's definitely clearer. And I think it's just interesting to get to watch it as I move forward. And all these people joining are not the low-hanging fruit. They're not the people who are just like, oh, this person who I know, Karin, put out another thing, I'll get it. These are people who I don't know.
Yeah. And that's huge. That's, and we can recap these factors later, but like that is another factor, is who are you launching it to? Because honestly, like when I first started my business and my first goal was to get 100 people on my email list, I think I did like a Jenna Kutcher or Amy Porterfield challenge or something. It was like, get your first 100 people on your list. And it's like, so I put it out on my personal Facebook. Of course, my grandma and my aunt and whoever else are going to like join this thing. But it's a quality over quantity, and how warm, how cold are they? Like I was, putting this out there to a very warm audience, but they weren't necessarily qualified. So it's one thing to consider, even with the copy. But the second case study that we did was with Amy, and Amy works in a super specific niche, is that she works specifically with people who are experiencing inflammation and other side effects from autoimmune diseases. So she's launching into a hyper-specific audience, which was reflected in her conversion rate out of the gate. When she first launched her opt-in and put it out into the world, she was getting over a 70% conversion rate, which was huge. And then by the time that, after a few months, because she gave me 3 months of data, by the month before we changed her copy, she was down to a 24% conversion rate, which is still huge,
good,
and great. So good. We did do some work to make her opt-in clearer, because her opt-in was different than anything I've seen before. So it's like she had framed it as a game that people would play to find out what their like one health habit was that they needed to change to start decreasing inflammation. So it was like the one small step. And the month after the copy change, she went up to a 37%. So we went from 24 to 37%.
That's really
and
good.
it was really good.
Yeah.
And the traffic was coming. What was nice about this is it was a like to like comparison, that she was running the same exact ad with the same exact copy to the same exact ad set the month before and after the change. So we can track that, making it a bit more clear and taking it from 24 to 37. It was probably the copy, because that was the
definitely the
control
copy.
variable here,
Yeah.
that made that change. So that's one where we all get a gold star and we come on a
Yeah.
podcast and we talk about our successes. So
Totally.
yeah.
And that was like the perfect case study versus what I did to you.
Right, right. But, you know, again, it's all of this data, all of this information is so good because, like I said, she has a very specific niche, but like a relatively complicated, just because it's a little different from the norm, opt-in. And if she were to have like changed anything else, it would be a lot harder to track. So yeah, what we found with her copy was like the clearer and more specific we got, the more that people responded. And what's lovely with her is like a lot of people speak in their, I would say, their language, right? So their industry jargon. And her industry does understand the industry jargon, because if you came to somebody like me who does not have an autoimmune issue and you're talking about reducing inflammation, la di da, that wouldn't resonate with me. But her people are truly looking for solutions for their inflammation, because that's what their doctors are telling them. That's what other sources are telling them. So we get to use some of her industry jargon, but that's something I would caution your audience about, is like, but what is your audience saying about their problem? And that's really what she nailed.
Yeah. So they are using jargon, but they are familiar with jargon, and she can use that language. Right. Yeah. So many of us mess that up, especially when I coach coaches. And so if a coach ever looks at my stuff and tries to emulate how I sell, I get to use jargon because my clients are in it with me. We have the same training. We have the same language. So I see what you're saying.
Right,
Don't
right. Like
copy
you
me
get a
is what
room
I'm
full of
saying.
accountants and they're going to talk. Exactly. Yeah. You get a room full of accountants and they're going to be talking about like EBITDA and this and that trackers. And then they go to their clients and say that, and their clients are going to be like, absolutely not. Can you just not get me arrested on April 7th? That'd be great. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, different problem language. So then third case study was Trisha, and I misspoke with Amy. Hers was not delivered in the like video game format. That was actually Trisha, but same points still stand. So Trisha had kind of a unique opt-in, helping people identify their business goals versus their priorities, and like channeling that down so that they can focus only on growth tasks versus like all the things. Hers was interesting because we don't have great data on it. And that's not because she doesn't have a good opt-in, but it's because she had a tech issue where things like weren't connecting in the background, and she didn't catch it until 2 weeks in, and she had not been previously promoting it. So what we did find was that she did get 41 opt-ins during that time, and 6 people opted in, which is a 15% conversion rate, which for a first stab at an opt-in is pretty darn good, because like we said, that like benchmark that you should go for is like 15%. If you have a hyper specific audience, it goes up from there. So again, another testament to, it's not just words on a page and how pretty it is. It also is like, how are your systems working? How easy is it for people to opt in? You know, is there a field for name and email above the fold? Is that button working? You know, like there's
have
a
you
lot
done
of
your
tech
D
into
mark
it.
and your D whatever the other word is for your email system, so that they're actually not going to people's junk?
Yes, I have done that.
Okay.
Yes.
And everybody listening, make sure you have done that too, because it needs to be done. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go Google it.
Yeah, go Google it, and it's not that hard. I'm very not techie, and it's not that hard. So yes, it's spelled DMARC, correct? If
there you
they're
go. Yes.
Googling it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, again, like we're kind of 1 for 3 on really great results, but because we had eyes on this, especially for Trisha, our third case study, like because she has eyes on this, she was able to realize what her
Yeah.
mistakes were from
Yeah.
tech. And if you just kind of set it and forget it, which is so much of one of the lies that we're told as business owners,
Yep.
of like set it and forget it and passive income, and once you get your funnel set up, you just make money on autopilot, and there is
Make
some
money while you
truth to
sleep.
that, but like yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and you can make money while you sleep, but it takes a lot of work while you're awake.
Yes. And I think like I actually think these 3 examples are so good because most of the time when any of us entrepreneurs get our act together enough to hire somebody, there are steps that we didn't know we needed to take to be ready to actually utilize the person that we've hired in the way that highlights their skill the best. And I'm imagining for contractors like you, this can be really frustrating, but it's just so normal.
Yeah. Yeah. And as much as we all want to have a magic wand, right? Like you get frustrated at Canva and Instagram and whatever. And so you just hire a social media
Mm-hmm.
manager or a VA or whomever, and you want them to like wave their magic wand and get you leads or get whatever. Or you hire a copywriter and you want our magic wand to just get you more clients. It's like, I can write all the emails in the world, but if you're not sending them to a list, not sending them to a list that's warm,
Mm-hmm.
not, if you're selling something completely out of left field, like there's so much that goes into it, and no one person has a magic wand. So when you're hiring, don't put that pressure on
Mm-hmm.
people as well.
Yeah. There's just such a business is an ecosystem, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't get to completely leave out parts of it and expect one thing to save everything. It just doesn't usually work that way. I've seen people do it sometimes with sales where they'll get really good at one thing and that's selling and they bring in a lot of money, but then they don't know how to stay there and they don't know how it's happening and they're losing money
Mm-hmm.
really fast. Right? We can lean on one thing for a while, but we really need to create that, like, what is this healthy ecosystem? How I'm showing up supporting how my contractors get to show up to support me, and how am I creating a healthy, well-rounded, grounded business?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you said the CTA should be above the fold. For people who don't know what the fold is, that's if you go to your website on the internet, it's whatever you see before you scroll it all, and look at it from your phone too.
Mm-hmm.
1 to 2 scrolls is enough for a free thing. Tell me what that means.
Yeah. So for those who have signed a lease or a mortgage, you know how many papers there are, how much you have to go through to sign. There's like 100 pages, or let's then take this back to the internet, like 100 scrolls of things to get through, and details, details, details. And there is a balance that the longer something is, the more expensive you're expecting something to be. And
Mm.
oftentimes what I see people do is go online and say like opt-in page template, and then they find one and they download it and they plug all their information into it, and then it sounds super cookie cutter, super boring, and there's like so many details that you didn't need. So for
Mm.
example, with this opt-in with the to reduce inflammation, it's like, I want to know what I'm getting, why I need it, and how to get it with like a click. And then maybe because it's somebody that I'm trusting to talk about my body, I want a little bit of information about them and their expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's what I need to know to be able to download the thing and potentially learn from this person. And I'm not saying that we should do the bare minimum, but I am saying that we do not need a mortgage length freaking sales page
Mm-hmm.
for a free thing. Just because the template that you downloaded was 6 scrolls long doesn't mean that yours needs to be. I've done and downloaded many, many, many things that are not even one scroll. They're just
Yeah.
one page. It's like, tell me the 10 things that I need to know. Then you're going to email it to me, and I'll give you my name and email.
Yeah. It's a worthy trade. It's not like you're giving them $100.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So another thing we need to know for our opt-in pages is keeping the copy consistent. I think this one's so important because I'm really sensitive to like visual differences. So
Mm-hmm.
like if I go on your opt-in page and it looks like this beautiful white and green plants and clear and spacious, and then you send me an email that's dark orange and it has like it looks like Halloween. To me, my brain is like, what's happening? And I unsubscribe.
You feel like you got catfished. It's like showing up on a date and being like,
Yeah.
this is not Karen. This is
Yeah.
not who I thought I was speaking with. Yeah, I mean, I followed a woman a few years ago. I hope she's well. I don't know where she went. She was a copywriter, but she had a thing called chili lime. And that was her like signature spice, and that's what she did. And so she was punchy and spicy, and that is who she was. So there's that. But then we think of like chili lime, or like this tahini type idea. And then let's go over here and we're going to talk to Barbie, and Barbie's going to give us lots of short punchy sentences, and she's going to have lots of exclamation points, and it's going to be really fun to read and like pretty high level. And speaking to chili lime, and then speaking to Barbie, speaking to, like, or like, I guess a more apples to apples approach would be like talking to Wednesday Addams and then talking to Barbie. So if your copy is saying something, like, we have to use the same language throughout the funnel. So if you're saying, download this amazing fun Barbie pink funnel over here, and we're saying like, I'm going to be your funnels coach, and then you start getting the emails and they're talking not about funnels but about lead magnets and this, that, the other. We know that they're parts of funnels, but your client might not know that. So you need to keep using that funnels language that you promised. I promised to deliver you a funnel, and then when you get to the email that's delivering the funnel information, it has to use the same words. It has to use that same verbiage until you teach them or start to like tell them what those next steps are. So we're going both for similar voice as well as similar words, and like making sure that we're being consistent throughout so that people know who they're talking to.
So some repetition is healthy and helpful. Yeah.
Another example here too is, especially if you have a team, if I were to be getting emails from Karen, and I see Karen on a Facebook ad, and I see Karen's face in the first email, and then all of a sudden I'm getting emails from assistant Alex, or your right-hand woman, or your business partner or something, I'm like, who the heck is Alex or Sarah or whomever? And this even goes for large companies. I worked with a large company. They're one of those like coffee mushroom companies. And they were like, we have so many people unsubscribing, and it's because it was coming from the founder's name, and then they switched it to somebody else's name, and everyone was like, who is this person? So consistency in like who it's coming from, what it looks like visually, what it sounds like, the words you're using.
That makes sense. Be a good host. Okay. Talk to me about thank you pages, because I tend to be like, I just want to use the same one for everything, and I just want to have like, go subscribe to my podcast and see you on LinkedIn, or whatever the like most basic thing is. So tell me, like, how can we be optimizing those?
I love thank you pages because you can use the same one for everything, especially for all of your opt-ins, and especially if you have like very similar offers. For example, I sell a lot of templates on my website, and my thank you page goes to an order bump for me to write them for you. And so it's, you can write this or you can get my eyes on it, and here's how much it costs. It's an hour service. So that, like, for me, it's very natural to have that same page, but it's not just like, thanks, check your inbox. It's like, thanks, here's the next solution to your next problem. It's like, now you have to go write it, but what if you didn't?
Right. That's really nice. That feels caring
with that next problem. Yeah.
Okay. So if we had, let's take mine, for example, 5 ways to make coaching your marketing. Thank you page could be an order bump for, I don't really have anything that fits that bill, other than I guess my membership is what I have now. Check out my membership, and I could do some kind of bonus with that on my thank you page. Yeah. Fun.
Especially a one-on-one or something like that, like an additional one-on-one with your membership. Yeah.
Cool. That makes sense. And all these things feel like just really nice, thoughtful, intentional hosting. If I'm going to invite someone into my world, I'm going to do that in a really clear and thoughtful way. I want you to know what's happening. I want you to feel well held. I'm not going to change and have my neighbors start hosting after week 3. This makes sense. Okay. What were the overall takeaways for you that you would want to make sure somebody walks home with today from this experiment and from kind of our learnings from it?
I have an 80 and 8 rule that I think applies here. And that is, can you put your page in front of an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old and they both understand what's going on?
Love
Because
it.
especially as coaches, like, we're told that you should be speaking at a, what is it, a 4th grade reading level, period. So if you can put it in front of your local 8-year-old and your local 80-year-old, do they understand what you're offering? Also, I use it, I don't have kids and my grandparents don't live nearby, and it'd be wild if I sent them things all the time. So I have a partner who does not work in like the online business space at all. He's an aircraft mechanic.
Perfect.
So he's also a great person, but theoretically, can these different people understand what you're doing? So that to say that the takeaways are, is it clear? Are you staying away from jargon? Are you making it super easy? And that's both visually with copy and with your tech for people to opt in and get the thing.
I love it. I like to say it too, like, does your next door neighbor get what you do? In how we're showing up online. So for someone who's like, okay, now I need those templates, what's your favorite template that people should start with, in your opinion?
They should start with my opt-in sequence template for sure. I opt-in sequence, welcome sequence, same thing. That's 8 emails that tells people who you are, what you do, delivers the thing, and stages the next problem for you to solve, with the goal of you selling something to them before they're out of the opt-in sequence.
Cool. Okay, great. And can you say your website out loud so people know?
Sure thing. It is nomadcopyagency.com.
Love it. And I'm going to put the links for the freebies that we worked on with Sam in the show notes so that you'll have a chance to see all of those and see really cool examples of how she helped us clarify our work. And I think my last question is really around like how to use templates in a way that feels, and maybe you do this inside of your template stuff. In the past, I've used them and then my assistant goes, this doesn't really sound like you. Can you change it? And I'm like, well, dang, why did I get the template then? So like, how do we use templates as the great tools that they are, but also make sure we keep our voice in them?
Great question. One thing I like to do is read them out loud to myself.
Nice. Yeah.
But I did a workshop about a week ago because I have a series of Black Friday templates. And as we're recording this, we are weeks away from Black Friday, less than weeks away from Black Friday. And so I did a workshop where we sat down and wrote Black Friday emails using the templates. So it was really cool for me to hear what people were saying. And one person was like, I'm Canadian. This doesn't, like, you're referencing like football and turkey and Macy's Day Parade, and I'm not going to feel the turkey hangover on Friday because it's a work day
you're
for
like,
me,
I'm
and it
just
would be
going to go to
weird
work
for me to say that. And I was like, so it's things like that where it's like, okay, but who are you sending it to, and what do they know about you already? Because if you're using these highly situational words, then what is your equivalent? Or can you just say, I've been hearing a lot of feedback that people are not working on Friday because they ate too much cranberry sauce yesterday. Lost in the cranberry sauce. So there's opportunities like that. Read it out loud to yourself. And also, something that I see, somebody somewhere put this on a template one time and everybody copied it, and now everybody's sales pages have an imagine if section. And it's not a bad section to have on your site, but it's one that I look at and I'm like, template. Because I've seen it. And so it's this like, imagine if you could wake up every morning feeling super energized and you have the bestest coach ever and everything's going to be amazing. It paints this picture of what working with you is like, but it's taking those headers and being like, but what do you actually say to your people? What are you saying on sales calls? And that's what I mean by read it aloud to yourself, is you're not saying like, imagine if you woke up tomorrow and had the bestest coach ever. It's saying something like, you know, if you're say like a business coach, like you are fully capable of blank. and investing that assurance,
which is
in
something I said
people.
like yesterday.
Yeah, is you are
Mhm.
incredibly capable of blank. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and having those. Also, just like random side note, but lists should never have more than 4 to 5 points. Our brains see things in threes.
Yeah.
Please, for the love of all things, break
3 to
up your
5.
lists on
3
sales
to 5.
pages. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And give people room.
Mhm.
And here, I'm just going to share another pet peeve of mine is when an entire page on a website is center aligned. My
Mhm.
brain has such a hard time reading it. I'm like, I need you to be left aligned so that my eyeballs know where to go, which I think is
Yeah.
just, just a thing. It's how we read.
It is. It is how we read. And understanding that type of sales psychology is super important as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. I appreciate you being here and sharing. One, I think everyone should go to your website and look at the templates that you have, because I know from being a coach for people who have online businesses, there are a lot of things you are not writing because you don't know where to start. And starting with
Mhm.
a template can be a really good place to start. And I love that tool of like, use a template, write it all out, and then read it aloud, and then make it sound like yourself. So
Mhm.
thanks for helping us and for pointing to what matters and for being willing to experiment and try to bring some learnings and some real world onto a podcast. And I had fun. Is there anything else you want to share while you're here?
I mean, I'll go ahead with the shameless plug here at the
Yeah.
end that
Yeah.
I write really great sales copy. So if templates aren't your jam and you do want to hand it off, I do project-based work. And I also have a membership called Copy on Demand where you can
Mm.
submit copy to me on a weekly basis and I will tell you what to improve and why, but you do the writing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll brainstorm it, but you do the writing and that helps you create better patterns in your writing so that you
Mm-hmm.
learn to sell better in your writing over time.
I love that. I think learning how to write copy is an essential business skill. So that's a really cool way to
Mhm.
have a coach through it.
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
it's my favorite thing. I really love it. Yeah,
Cool.
I work with the
Okay.
best people. But yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to do this experiment. I loved the extra homework and it was fun. I appreciate it.
That was fun. I appreciate having you, and I look forward to sharing this as a part of our expert series, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much. So thank you to Sam for being here, for talking about copy, for being willing to dive into the copywriting lives of life coaches, because there's a lot to do, right? There's so much writing that we do in this role, probably more than any of us ever imagined. We're content creators at the same time as being coaches. So I really encourage you to figure out how to make friends with writing. And I think if you're someone who really struggles to write copy, really consider Sam's work where she can go back and forth with you on your copy so that you can learn that skill. That's a really great skill to have. It's something that I lean on just about every day. And it's very empowering to know that you're someone who can just write a sales email or get a sales page done because you have done some of that work. So it might not be that right now is the right time, but when it is time, when you're like, I do need to focus on how I communicate because I've got my other ducks in a row, then go for it. I don't think there's any downside to getting better copy going inside of your business and knowing how to write it for yourself. All right. Thank you all for being here. Make sure to rate and review the podcast. I'm so glad to have had the chance to have Sam as one of our experts. Thank you.